Good afternoon and welcome to just about the end of the first session of the 10th Regulators and Policymakers Retreat, Day 3, where we have examined macroeconomic issues with respect to sustainable development and living. With us is Dr. Subir Gokarn. Welcome, Dr. Gokarn.
Thank you.
Who is currently employed with the Standard & Poor's, who has extensive experience across macroeconomic studies, across macroeconomic recommendations, whether he's worked at the NCER and at several other places. Dr. Gokarn, we wanted to know, given the current economic downturn, very quickly, what was the actual reason for such an economic downturn to happen when there are economists in control across the US, across regulatory commissions there, across the Fed, across the same in India? How does this happen?
Well, at one level, every set of solutions emerges from the ashes of the previous crisis. So, macroeconomic policy, or any policy for that matter, tends to draw on the past. In doing so, it often underestimates or underemphasizes the risks that are inherent in the solution itself. And as a result, when these risks magnify, it does not have the devices to deal with them. So that broad approach, I think, is the best way to understand what happened this time around. There was an enormous infusion of liquidity globally over the last several years. Because people felt, central bankers, policymakers felt that we had dealt with many of the past problems in terms of inflation, in terms of monetary management, in terms of control of the macroeconomy. So you could infuse liquidity to keep growth going without having too much risk of inflation. This liquidity had to find its way into various applications. Liquidity, by definition, finds its own level. And a number of different financial instruments, many of which were simply more and more complicated combinations of existing instruments, came up as a result of this liquidity because investors had appetites for new kinds of assets. And so a new set of assets was created. As these were created, it became more and more difficult to grasp the underlying risk. And so people felt they were buying into relatively safe assets. As it turned out, these were not relatively safe assets, and somewhere the process crumbled. Ironically, it was exactly the situation or the process that created this, or contributed to this. I won't say created, but contributed to this situation. It was a reversal of that process that ended up causing its destruction. Liquidity was being sucked out because inflation threats had emerged, and as liquidity was sucked out, the inflated prices of these assets started to fall, and then this cascaded through the system to take us to the situation we found ourselves in about a year and a half ago. So as we look back, it all seems very clear. It seems very logical. It seems very almost predictable. But the key problem was that the quantum of risk that had actually built up in the system and the absence of any mitigation, because nobody understood it. So obviously, if you don't understand the risk, you don't mitigate it. That's really where the problem arose. And I think the next phase will be where we start to try and understand these risks better and find more efficient ways to mitigate them. But of course, that will then sow the seeds for something in the future. So a crisis will always emerge somewhere. I think that it is idealistic to assume that we can ever rid ourselves of crisis. But it's realistic to expect that no two crises will be caused by the same factor. I think we're okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. We will not have a crisis being caused by the same set of factors because we would have found solutions to that.
So what kind of an impact does this have on the state of macroeconomics, whether in academic circles or in applied economic circles, and how can we improve on
Well, every macroeconomics is actually the child of crisis. The origins of modern macroeconomics, not that it emerged from thin air, but there were obviously many components of it that were already in place. But the weaving together into a consistent and a comprehensive body of thought body of knowledge was the Great Depression. Similarly, in the wake of the inflation surges we had in the late 60s, early 70s, new thinking, new understanding of both the causes of macroeconomic instability and the ways to deal with them emerged from that. Since then, we've had episodes of exchange rate volatility, of other macroeconomic factors that have resulted in new thinking. And now I think what we will see is a far more rigorous analytical understanding of the link between macroeconomics and financial sector, how risks either offset or reinforce each other, and what are the kinds of both policy measures and regulatory measures that will help to deal with this. So I think our understanding of financial risk and the linkage between financial risk and macroeconomic performance will improve dramatically as a result of this episode.
Right. In that case, why is it so that corporate economists are not the rage in India, in the sense that we have financial officers as chief financial officers or financial heads, but corporate economics has really not caught on with corporate India?
I would agree. I think this is an evolution. In any organization, the use and utilization of particular domain skills depends on a recognition of need. Indian corporates operated for many generations in a completely controlled and therefore secure environment. It may not have been a good environment, but a secure environment. They had therefore had no need for any skills that involved understanding uncertainty, alternatives, possibilities, which is what an economist in an organization like that would typically do. You would try and develop scenarios which the business could then use to do its planning. Indian business didn't really need that. After liberalization, the need gradually was recognized, and I think we've had more and more economists who have entered the corporate sector. And I can give you my own experience where we had a batch, well, not a batch, but an institutional reunion about 10 years ago, and there were about 3 or 4 generations of alumni. The people who had graduated in the late 60s, early 70s were mostly with the central bank. There was a bunch of people who had graduated in the mid 80s who were mostly with government. And then there's a bunch of people who graduated in the mid to late 90s who are all with the private sector. So I think that gives you a sense of the trajectory and the career path that economists have taken even in India.
Excellent, sir.